Hello.
Hello, Podfeet. How are you today?
Oh, I'm frazzled. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Okay,
Now that
well,
we got our audio situation squared away yet
oh,
again.
I'm frazzled. How are
Whoops.
you?
Got
Yeah,
to
that's
mute
good.
that.
Now that we got our audio hooked up, he says,
Then I got
"What?"
a delayed audio feed coming in.
Yeah, that's good. It's real professional. Listen to yourself.
Oh, and I just got a notification from YouTube that we are live.
The love boat.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. Well done.
Nice. All
Pulled
right, so
that
I'm going
one
to tell you
out
guys
pretty.
how Mike is a genius. So I have a an Apple script embedded in an automator workflow that allows me to copy the URL and title of a podfeed.com blog post. And when it does that, it strips off some stuff off the end because if you just pull the title out of the HTML, it would say like an M dash podfeed podcast at the end. So anyway, it strips that off and it gives me the title, and that allows me to post onto places like Mastodon. And oh, hi, Lindsay. And
Lindsay.
anyway, when I did the new Pave on my MacBook Pro and I put Sonoma on it, now it says when I paste it, I'll show you what it looks like. Um, the URLs they're weird. They say personal at the front, so it looks like this. Whoops, that wasn't it. So, for example, for my new Pave thing, see, it says personal. It shouldn't say that at the beginning. He figured out it's because Sonoma has profiles, and the default profile is called personal. I never in a million years would have figured that out. Never would have occurred to me that that would be it,
Well, for something called the Love Show, I think that's appropriate.
that it's personal. All right.
Hey, we need to point something out.
What?
We have new shirts.
Oh, yes. Wait a minute. I just noticed my lights are down. Don't show. Oh, you showing it off?
No, I'm not showing off anything. Well, we are on
Actually,
display. Yeah, what
why
happened
I'm
to your
just,
lighting?
I forgot my lights. Everything didn't turn on, and my automation's all messed up. So yes. Okay. Now show off our shirts. These are from NASA Nut. These are for the annular eclipse that we're going to go see next week, which is why there will be no love show. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Really cool shirt. And they're official NASA Eclipse shirts.
Yeah, they are. Oh, oh, look, I've got the date on my sleeve.
Yeah, can't forget it. Next Saturday. I think 10:30 a.m. where we will be. About
Yeah,
10:30 a.m.
very cool. All right, well, I haven't done roll call, you know.
No.
Oh, you're going to be going to see the eclipse in April? Which, oh, where?
Yeah.
Because it turns out there's total eclipses often. They're just all over the world, so you don't end up seeing them in the same place very often. Uh,
Austin. We're going to be
oh,
close
that's
there.
in April. Sorry. Oh, yeah, we're going to be. Are we in Austin?
Well, we're
San
flying into
Antonio.
Austin, but we're going to a resort that's
San Antonio?
it's even a driving distance from there. Yeah. But San Antonio is the closest large city,
Oh, you don't
major
suppose there's a
city.
way we could meet Zoe?
So the April one next year is a total eclipse. That's even cooler. But we've
Yeah,
never
this.
seen an annular eclipse, which will be next Saturday.
Jill, you said you saw one once or twice. They're fairly life changing. I've once or twice. Um,
So when you say you saw one, where
you mean
one was
total?
total.
Oh, okay. Yeah, total is a big difference. Mostly total. It's not the same. It's cool. It's not the same. I'm going to do roll call. We got Brett and Kevin and Doc, Tim and Jason. There we go. Frank and Mike and Jill and Lindsay, the daughter, John, Rick, Steve and Zoe, and Sandy is not here, unfortunately. Oh, there we go. You know, we tried to look up that episode and it's off the air. You can't get it on the internet anymore. I'm so sad.
Yeah.
All right. We should probably get going. What do you think?
I think we should.
All right. Wait, that's on it. There we go. All right, here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, October 8th, 2023, and this is show number 961. Well, before we dig into the show, I want to let you know that there will be no live show next Sunday, October 15th. Steve and I are off to Utah to see the annular eclipse with our good friends Dean and Suzanne. Now, because the NosillaCastaways are awesome, I already have the content for the show next week. So yet again, you'll be getting the episode early. But if you're someone who doesn't open their presents till the actual day of celebration, I hope you enjoy the new show on Sunday or Monday, wherever you listen. All right.
So Rose was here and she was missed.
Oh, sorry, Rose.
Probably because she was in the sidebar and not in the live show listen.
Oh, and I don't have the sidebar showing. There we go. Now it's showing. It's so hard to tell who's really here.
Yeah,
It's just once ever here.
You can't really use that as a reliable method for telling when someone's here.
Yeah. Oh.
Brett wanted you to say no love show on the recording.
You know, I thought about it.
That would have been good.
I just noticed something. Did you guys know you can do command minus, like since Discord is a web app, essentially it's an Electron app, you can do command minus and get more on screen?
Oh.
Look at that.
I'm afraid to do it with the one I've got because I'm putting it on the display.
Right. But it's just still kind of cool. I did it accidentally because I'm in, I was trying to do it in Hindenburg. All right. Off by game. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to copy this title here. I'm doing a chapter mark. Was I supposed to?
Yep.
Right. Copy link. All right. You don't do enough live shows to get into a pattern of them. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Oh, it was very quick to stop that. Okay. So this one next. All right. Here we go. Two years ago, October 5th, I stopped using any services from the company Meta, also known as Facebook and Instagram. I didn't actually quit these services. I just quit going into them because, now, 2 years ago, on October 5th, I stopped using any services from the company Meta, that is, Facebook and Instagram. Now, I didn't technically quit these services. I just quit going into them and I removed them from my devices. I made this change after Frances Haugen, former data scientist at Facebook, testified before Congress. While working at Facebook, she was tasked with studying how the company's algorithms affects users. The algorithms are hard to say. The algorithm does things we not only didn't know it was doing, Facebook didn't even know it was doing. Her team studied the results and presented them to leadership, and as a result, her team was shut down. When she left the company, she copied thousands of confidential documents and gave them to government officials. Two specific things examples she showed, stood out to me most as I watched those congressional hearings. One was an ad targeting teenage girls for pro-anorexia websites. Let that sink in for a minute. The second one was an ad campaign for a Skittles party. Since many had not heard of a Skittles party, she went on to explain that this is where kids go into their parents' medicine cabinets, dump all of their pills into a pillowcase, they shake it up, and they grab some to take. Now, while neither one of these ads ever ran because they were actually honeypots done by some watchdog groups, the Facebook algorithm approved both of them. There was a lot more in the hearings, but that was really the final straw for me. I knew a lot of stuff was going on, but it wasn't in black and white right out there in front of it for me. And I felt like I had to take a stand. So I left Facebook and Instagram 2 years ago. Now, I was never a big fan of Instagram, but I missed Facebook quite a bit. The habit was a big part of it. So for the first few months, the temptation was really great to go back. But after a while, I got used to not wasting time scrolling through the service. I also realized how little I really missed. I shared connections with a lot of people I don't know, but maybe know me through the podcast, or were friends of friends, or acquaintances of acquaintances, or maybe were people I knew a long time ago and we don't really need to stay connected. So as a result, there was a lot of glop to scroll through before I got to content I actually cared about. But there was a big side effect I did not anticipate. It was actually harder for me to communicate in real life with my real life friends. They'd say, "What's going on, Allison?" And I'd say, "Hey, Forbes did this really cute thing on Saturday." And my friend would say, "I know, I saw it on Facebook." Okay, they didn't say it that way, but that's what it sounded like to me. They just go, "I know, I saw it on Facebook." But that made me incredibly sad because it's like, okay, I don't know what I can tell you because I don't know what you've already seen. And it just made me sad. It also made me sad when Steve would mention something adorable Kennedy did in Texas, and I didn't know about it because it was on an Instagram story. I talked to my friends and family about how sad this made me, and they've tried over the last 2 years to accommodate my choice to not participate in Meta services. My friends simply listen to my stories of my adorable grandchildren, and they try to pretend they don't already know about it. My kids post pictures to our family threads and Instagram to try to keep me up to date. But it's still hard. I'm missing my own family events. During this last 2 years, Twitter's become a dumpster fire, as everybody knows, so I've slowed down my usage there quite a bit, and I've moved to Mastodon for my non family fun interactions. Twitter's so awful now that it's starting to make Facebook not look all that bad. I'm kind of reminded of my father once said he wouldn't allow us to watch the TV show MASH because it was so sexually explicit. Many years later, I caught him watching MASH. I pointed out the inconsistency, and he said, "Yeah, but you know what? Now everything else is so awful, MASH doesn't seem all that bad." You can probably tell where this is going. I've decided to go back on Facebook and Instagram so I can enjoy my own family's posts again. My plan is to dramatically reduce the number of people I follow on both services and maybe even cut it down to only my own family. If you're one of these people who pay attention to who stops following you, please don't be sad if you see me disappear. Instead, follow me over on Mastodon. Now, I've started to pile through all of these lists of names, and I spent about an hour on Facebook, and I cut it from 562 people down to 450 people. So it's going to be a long time before I can get that scraped down to people that my family and maybe my closest friends. I've done a lot with Instagram, and that one was even more interesting. I went through and it's like 3 or 4 taps to get rid of one person. And so I'm like, tap, 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 tap. Okay, tap, 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 tap. I did it, went all the way down to the bottom, and I went out and I had only gotten rid of about a fifth of the people. So I went back in and there was a whole new list of people I had to scroll through. So it is going to take me a while to really pull this back, but I really want to isolate this down to the people I really want to follow. Anyway, and please, again, don't take any offense if I erase you, if I turn you off, because I'm just trying to survive like everybody else. Now, I may even join Threads, but I'm just not sure about that. While a lot of the tech nerds I enjoy are on Mastodon, there are a fair number of well-known people I enjoy reading who are calling out their Threads handles now. I may give it a poke and see if it brings me joy, and I may jump in there from time to time. I do feel like I may have disappointed some of my champions who applauded my move to leave all things meta, and for that I apologize. I'm definitely not leaving Mastodon, and I'm deliriously happy with the Slack community we built at podfeet.com/Slack. But Kennedy, Parker, Teddy, Forbes, and Sienna are calling me over on Instagram and Facebook. I told my family that I was going to go back on Facebook and Instagram, and my daughter-in-law instantly said, "Thank you." So that was really cool. Anyway, I'm fully aware that has been a lot of rationalization, but the important thing is that I think Mark Zuckerberg has learned his lesson.
I'm sure he has. One other thing to point out is that even though you're going back on Facebook, it's still not the best place to interact with the NosillaCast page. We still have a Facebook NosillaCast page, but we're just posting blog posts and shows there. We're not really interacting a lot there. So Slack is the place to go for the interaction and the feedback.
I wish I'd thought to say that earlier. I don't want to ruin my punchline.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I just wanted the live show folks to know.
Yeah. Oh, I love Alan Alda.
Yeah, that was a very good show. Really, some
He has a spectacular podcast too.
Alan. Oh yes, yes.
He has 2 podcasts. Why can't I remember the names?
One is tech.
No,
Something.
they're all about communication. One is about communicating science. There's one is science, and one is still some science, but not as much science. Why can't I think of the name of it? Hang on. Fantastic. Can't believe he's wearing thin to you. I think he's just the best. Clear and Vivid. That's what it's called.
Yeah, and then Clear and Vivid Science is the other.
Yeah.
I think.
Alrighty. So, oh, we have a tiny tip. You know how we like the tiny tips.
Oh yeah.
I can't believe that blog post was up for 2 days.
So as you were editing it, it was up? As you were adding to it and so forth, or did you just...
I suspect I reached some point and either accidentally did it or I don't know.
Well, you could see the evolution a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I've got these. I had to reinstall all of my jingles, and they're all in the wrong. Dumb question corners down. They're all too low. Should probably not do this right now, but all right. What was I looking for?
You froze
Tiny
on
tip.
me.
There it is. Sorry?
You froze on me there for a bit, but you're back.
Uh-oh. All right. Actually, wait a minute. My mic just made noise. I think that's too close. Mark Zuckerberg has learned his lesson. One of the great joys of Mac OS is how many apps come pre-installed on your Mac. Now, these aren't bloatware. They're actually quite useful apps. When you first get your Mac, or after you nuke a Mac? Nuke a Mac. When you first get a new Mac, or after you nuke a Mac, erasing everything and reinstalling the OS, you can see which apps the Mac comes with. But what if you want to know which apps came pre-installed after you loaded? Oh, that's a bad sentence. One of the great joys of Mac OS is how many apps come pre-installed on your Mac. Now, these aren't bloatware. They're actually quite useful apps. When you first get your Mac, or after you nuke a Mac, erasing everything and reinstalling the OS, it's really easy to see which apps the Mac comes with. But what if you want to know which apps came pre-installed, but it's after you've loaded all of your third-party apps? How do you tell them apart? Well, I kind of recently figured out how to do just that. Open your applications folder and set it to list view. You could do this either by going to view and choosing as list, or you can hit Command 2. But if you have any grouping chosen, such as group by size or group by date, disable that so you have just the plain list view. If we can sort the list by date added, we know the oldest ones will be the ones that were added first, which will of course be the pre-installed apps. With the application window open in Finder, go to the View menu and choose View Options, or use Command J to then open those same options. In the window that pops up, check the box next to Date Added and then close that floating window. You can also add columns to your view by right-clicking where you see the existing column options, and you could choose Date Added. So there's kind of 2 ways to go at that. Once you can see the Date Added column, select the chevron in the Date Added heading until it's pointed up. You should see the Utilities folder at the top because that's the first thing Apple installs. Utilities, not utilities. Utilities should be followed by the rest of the pre-installed Apple apps. As you scroll through the list, you will eventually find a non-Apple app, and that'll be the end of the pre-installed apps. In Ventura, where I first tested this, I had 16 apps in the utilities folder and another 40 non-utility apps for a total of 56 pre-installed apps. Now, I know this tiny tip isn't life-changing, but it's kind of fun to look through all of the apps that Apple pre-install for us. Check one thing here. Apps. As you scroll through the Apple installs, utilities should be followed. Here we go. All right. I must be boring tonight. People are talking about the weather. All right.
How about those Dodgers?
Oh, is there a show? We were Steve and I were on a walk down to the beach, and Bart called me, and he was walking in drizzling rain while we were wearing shorts and t-shirts and sunshine down on the beach. All right. So here we go. You can pave. This really isn't the pave story. It's only the nuke story. One of the greatest sources of content for the NosillaCast is the adventures I go through each time I do a nuke and pave on a Mac. Now, by nuke and pave again, I mean a clean install of the operating system and not doing any migration of any apps or settings from my previous installation. Now, the process I follow has evolved over the years, and I find that interesting. The last time I did a nuke and pave was just a year ago in September of 2022. That particular nuke was because things had simply gotten fiddly. This year's nuke and pave is because of the battery problems that continue to plague my 2021 14-inch MacBook Pro. It's kind of a nice time to do it anyway, though, since macOS Sonoma has just been released. Now, the backbone of my nuke and pave process is a massive mind map created and maintained in iThoughts from Toketaware. I started maintaining this mind map of doom, trademark Donald Burr, many years ago. The right side of the mind map is for app installations, while the left is all of the configurations I need to do for various tools. Both the apps and the configurations are sorted into mission critical, high priority, and low priority. I've become more rigorous about keeping the mind map up to date during the year when I add a particularly complex application, so that makes the paving part of the process much easier. When it's time to do the migration, or I should say pave, I do another pass through the mind map to remove apps I no longer use and to compare the list to the new apps I've installed. I certainly do not add every new app from my Mac. One of the joys of the nuke and pave is having a system with only the apps I actually use, not every app I've ever evaluated. One of the great enhancements I added to the mind map in 2022 is a section called Prep. This is a list of the apps that require a little bit of tender loving care before the migration. Often it's because they don't sync settings through iCloud or they don't have an obvious migration path. Some require an export of settings and an import on the other side, for example. It turns out in iThoughts, you can create links between nodes. This allows me to have a prep section of nodes that are simply the name of each app that needs special handling, and then each of those linked to the complex configuration instructions over on the left-hand side. Now, one of the more annoying steps in the prep section says, 2 days before nuking, start a carbon copy cloner clone of the backup drive to the Synology. So the problem to be solved here is a backup isn't a backup unless there are 2 copies. So as soon as the drive gets wiped, that would no longer be a backup. So I need to back up the backup drive. Now, I ran into this 2 days before nonsense the day I wanted to start the nuke and pave. I started trying to remember how I do it, and then I bugged Stephen Getz asking him for advice. While waiting for him to respond, I reread my 2022 edition of my nuke and pave post, only to discover that every single year I do the same thing. I try to figure out how to do this backup to the backup, and then I bug Stephen Getz. So anyway, I started following the steps from the 2022 edition. The process I documented there was to create a sparse bundle image on the Synology using disk utility, and then running carbon copy cloner to clone. That's not exactly right. You don't, and then using disk. That's right. The process I I'm going to say it that way anyway. I don't remember exactly what it is, but I don't think you make it directly on on there. The process I follow is to create a sparse sparse bundle image that'll be on the Synology, and I create it using disks utility, and then I run Carbon Copy Cloner to clone from my external SSD to the Synology. The problem I ran into, and I run into every year, is that it takes forever. Remember I said I have to start this 2 days early? Well, I ran Carbon Copy Cloner overnight, and it had only moved 250 gigabytes so far out of 1.76 terabytes. Worse yet, it was transferring data over gigabit Ethernet from my Mac to the Synology at only about 200 kilobytes per second at that point. Not megabytes, kilobytes. All right, I figured a way around this problem of how long it was taking to back up my backup to the Synology. I dusted off an older 1 terabyte Samsung T3 SSD, and I connected it over USB-C to my Mac. I created a 900 gigabyte sparse bundle on that drive. I then told Carbon Copy Cloner to clone from my 2 terabyte Samsung T5 real backup to that smaller SSD. Now, the brilliant part was I told it, don't clone my original photos library, don't clone Dropbox, and don't clone Google Drive. That way, the sparse bundle only ended up being 745 gigabytes, and it fit easily on that disk. So the best part was I had 2 fast SSDs, both direct connected to the MacBook Pro, so the clone took less than an hour. Now I had 2 copies of the backup of what I really needed, but I wanted to make sure I still got that copy for cold storage over onto the Synology. I tried connecting it over USB-C to USB-A to the Synology, but it kept connecting and reconnecting. I swapped out the cable, but at that point, which did fix the problem, but then Synology said, I can't read this disk. Turns out I didn't reformat the drive to exFAT before doing the clone, so it didn't know how to read it. No problem. I plugged the drive into the Mac Mini I have sitting right next to the Synology, and I let it do the copy over to the Synology while I slept, all over Ethernet. Okay, now I have 3 copies of my data, not including my Backblaze offsite backup. Oh, and my Synology backs up to another Synology at my buddy Ron's house, so that's actually 3 local, 1 a mile away and 1 online. That should be enough backups. Time to start the process of erasing and installing macOS Sonoma from scratch. I first started by looking at some instructions on Mac Rumors about how to do a clean install of macOS Sonoma on an Apple Silicon Mac or earlier models with a T2 chip. Instructions were very tempting because they said to first do the upgrade to macOS Sonoma on the Mac and then use the new erase all contents and settings option to start fresh migrating your data and installing apps. Sounded like more fun than downloading the installer and making a bootable drive. I also found instructions on MacPaw for a clean install of macOS Sonoma, and they recommended the tried and true create a thumb drive installer method. It still said to use the handy-dandy erase all contents and settings method, and I felt a bit more comfortable, though, that this was really a clean install. I probably could have done with the update first and then erase all contents and settings path, but I would really hate to have Margot from Apple tell me that engineering said I had to do it all again because I did it wrong. When I created the installer on the thumb drive, I felt more confident that I was truly burning it to the ground because when I was creating the installer, it said it was copying the macOS Recovery OS to the thumb drive. That felt real. That's burning it to the ground if you're starting over there. Now, as an aside, the fun thing about erase all contents and settings is that it's supposed to be very fast. Since your data is encrypted, it's really just erasing the encryption key. Erasing the encryption key instantly makes all of the data on the disk unreadable, so it's not like it has to write ones and zeros all over everything. Now, in reality, for me, erase all contents and settings didn't run quite as smoothly as they promised. First, it asked me to sign out and asked me for my Apple ID password, which I gave it. Then I got a nasty red error that said, unregister HTTP status from token service response. Okay, what the heck does that mean? My only option at that point was to type my password again or select continue. Nothing changed when I entered my password again, so I selected continue. This time it asked me to enter the Apple ID password for null. Okay. Why is it null? I don't know what it's talking about. Anyway, it offered to let me put in an Apple ID and password. So I put in my Apple ID and password. And this time I got a new nasty red error that said, The operation couldn't be completed. AK authentication error -7003. Okay. At this point, my only option was continue, so I chose it again. And this time it had the sign out screen with a happy blue cloud icon on it and a big white blank box sitting on top of it. No continue, no back, no nothing. I figured I'd give it some time, so I gave it 15 minutes and it hadn't changed, so I had to force quit the process and start over. I started the whole erase all contents and settings dance again, and this time when I entered my Apple ID password, it said I was locked out of my account. So that was really fun. It asked me for the phone number associated with my Apple ID and gave me a hint of the number by showing me the last 2 digits. I entered the right phone number, and this triggered an alert to every one of my devices asking for authorization to unlock my Apple ID. I tried it on my MacBook Air, and it failed, which made me kind of nervous. I triggered it again, and this time my iPhone was able to unlock my Apple ID. Whew. After that, I was rewarded with a final warning telling me I was about to erase all contents and settings from this backend. Did I truly want to do that? Yes, already. All right, the Mac did some of the usual stuff, showing an Apple logo and a progress bar for a short time, and then it restarted with a screen I'd never seen before. It was all black. In the upper left, it said Recovery Assistant. In the middle, it said Activate Mac. And below that, it said select a Wi-Fi network from the menu or attach a network cable to proceed. I was curious. I connected an Ethernet cable because I wanted the Mac to not know the Wi-Fi network yet. And anyway, when I connected the Ethernet cable, it said, your Mac is activated. It will restart in 22 seconds. This Activate Mac screen was curious to me because it was pretty obviously related to activation lock, but it was not asking to unlock activation lock. It was, okay, stumbling. Get a sip of water here. Was that crikey for me, Zoe? But it was not. This Activate Mac. Thank you, Kevin. Just saved. I know you actually do listen, Kevin. In fact, you're probably the only one who actually does because you're giving those notifications at the right time. But the whole story, yeah. Well, at least it was when I was erasing. I was a little nervous when when my account was locked, but all right, where am I here? This Activate Mac screen was curious to me because while it seemed pretty obviously related to activation lock, it wasn't asking to unlock activation lock. It was asking to activate the Mac. I did some searching online and I found what I think is the right explanation for the way this screen is written. On Reddit, a user was asking about it, and one person responded with this. Activate Mac checks the iCloud status with Apple servers. It will only let you activate instantly if it is not connected to any account, as it should be when you buy a used Mac. If it were connected to an iCloud account, it would show parts of the email address and ask for the iCloud account password. This makes sense because after it checked the activation status by connecting to the net, it was satisfied that it wasn't activation lock. It activated it, which let me set up the Mac like it was new. I think what made this non-obvious to me was I thought I was still in the erase everything phase, but I had evidently crossed over into the set up a new Mac phase without actually realizing it. All right, we now have a fully nuked machine. Now, as you may recall from my article just last week, how's that MacBook Pro battery problem going? The purpose of this year's Nuke and Pave is to try to definitively discern whether it's one or more of my third-party apps that are causing my MacBook Pro to have such poor battery life. If a clean install with no third-party apps installed still has the battery problems, then it's back to engineering to figure out what's wrong. If the Mac doesn't have problems without the third-party apps, then engineering wants me to test them one by one to figure out which one's causing the problem. Now, I'd like to thank everyone who weighed in on the problem after I published that article last week. Jill of Kent wrote me an email suggesting it might be faster to install half of my apps, run the battery test, and if it doesn't drain, install another half until I find the pile that includes the app that causes the problem, and then start cutting that piece in half. This is a great way to diagnose problems, and I use this method often. but it's not very practical in this case. If I installed half the apps and the problem occurred, I'd have to do another wipe of the machine, reinstall macOS Sonoma from scratch, and add in the first half of this is a great way to diagnose problems, and I use this method often, but it's not very practical in this case. Keep listening, John. It does not appear to have anything to do with my photos. If I installed half the apps and the problem occurred, I'd have to do another wipe of the machine, reinstall macOS Sonoma from scratch, and then add in half of the first half of the apps. Very time-consuming and tedious. Several people, including Dan Weeder, Sandy, David Price, and Ray Robertson, were all in my camp thinking Apple should give me a new MacBook Pro. It was really nice to have friends back me up like that. Peter McGregor felt I could push maybe for a lemon law on this one and explained it would unquestionably qualify if I was in the European Union. While I love having these champions on my side, I'm still not convinced that this is a hardware problem. Steve Davidson gave me lots of cool ideas on ways to watch for battery hogs using Unix under the hood, and that was really fun. We went back and forth quite a bit on what could be causing the problem. George from Tulsa chimed in with some interesting ideas, including asking me whether I was running any Catalyst apps, that is, apps written for iOS but run on Apple Silicon Maps. Why do I keep stumbling? Apple Silicon apps. That is, apps written for iOS but run on Apple Silicon Maps. That is, apps written for iOS but run on Apple Silicon apps. I do run some of those, but let's pick up the story after the reinstall. As soon as I had macOS Sonoma installed, I created a clean admin account. I did not give it access to any network. I simply put it to sleep for 2 hours. In my previous tests, sleeping with Wi-Fi off always had 0 battery drain, and this test revealed the same results. Next, I gave it access to Wi-Fi, and I put it to sleep for another 2 hours. Without being logged into iCloud and no third-party apps, but with Wi-Fi access, it again slept like a baby and lost 0%. Finally, I logged into iCloud. The only app I opened was Notes, and I saw that it had started syncing. I did not open Photos for fear that it would trigger the download of my 100,000 photos. In 10.5 hours, the Mac lost 14% battery. That is the same loss I was seeing before nuking all of my apps and settings. The best part of this is that if I select the battery in the menu bar, the little dropdown says, "No apps using significant energy." So, we now have a clean install of macOS Sonoma, and with iCloud logged in, it loses 17% in 10 hours. Wait, why did I say 17 and I said 14 a second ago? I think it was going to be 12 hours. I get lost between when it's 10 and 12. So now we have a clean install of macOS Sonoma with iCloud logged in, and it loses 14% in 10 hours. But logged out, it does not. Well, that would definitively suggest this has to be iCloud, not hardware. I decided to rerun a previous test, and that was with the MacBook Air, not the MacBook Pro. I installed a new macOS Sonoma volume on my MacBook Air. I logged into iCloud and put it to sleep. Normalized to 10 hours, it lost a grand total of 3%. And one could argue it shouldn't even lose that much while still asleep, but 3% is a darn better than, say, 14 or 15%. On both the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, when I tested right after logging into iCloud, I did not open my Photos library. From my observations, it appears you have to open Apple apps to initiate syncing to iCloud. For example, opening Notes right after turning on iCloud reveals an empty list, and only after a little while do you see it bringing down your notes. If you open up Apple Photos, it shows you "Welcome to Photos," but it doesn't show any of your photos coming in. So I'm pretty sure that both the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro were not downloading my 100,000 image photos library when I ran the battery tests. I also looked back at a battery test I did in August 2nd, I think it was, where I created a clean account on a new volume. I created a clean volume, I should say, installed, it wasn't Sonoma then, it was Ventura. and I did not log into, let's see, I had iCloud set to optimized images, so it wasn't the giant photos, and the MacBook Pro lost 15% overnight. So I can definitively say that it's something with this MacBook Pro. But as I wait for word back from Apple engineering, I can't help but ponder, what have we learned? Since it only happens on one device, does that mean it's a hardware problem? What hardware problem would only surface when I'm logged into iCloud and wouldn't surface with Wi-Fi turned on, but no iCloud? So that makes me think it's got to be something rogue in iCloud that's awakening the Mac. If that's the case, why doesn't that same rogue cause wake up the MacBook Air? If you have any ideas, please let me know. You know, I'll keep you posted as this never-ending saga continues. Anyway, I said this was going to be about nuking and paving, but I'll be back soon with thoughts on my paving process from this year. That's not quite
Frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got the sysdiagnose files. If you have any ideas, please. I'm going to reword this anyway. Anyway, I originally thought I would tell you all the nuking and paving parts of this story, but I think that's long enough, and I'll come back with some of my thoughts on what it's been like to pave in 2023. All righty, so what is it, guys? Is it hardware or is it software? George from Tulsa wrote me another note after reading that article. It was an interesting idea. He said one of the differences is Bluetooth. And I don't know that I've disabled and enabled Bluetooth to see whether that has any effect.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bluetooth is not high bandwidth, but I guess it can draw power.
Well, the Apple engineering says that it's waking up once a minute.
That's causing the drain.
Yeah, don't you think they owe me one fat gift card? How about the $2,500 it took to buy a MacBook Air so I'd have a machine to work on while I was doing all these tests?
Maybe you just shift to the MacBook Air.
Yeah, I mean, it's a desktop now, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Let's ask for money. Okay, here we go. One of the sweetest things about the support I get for the podcast through Patreon or PayPal is when I get a message explaining why someone has lowered a pledge. It's certainly not a requirement that people explain why, and I don't pay any attention at all to when people leave or lower their pledges. I mean, that's just seeking out lack of joy. Why would I do that? But it means something to me that people sometimes feel that they want to tell me why. I never want anyone to support the show financially if it causes them the tiniest lick of hardship. But it does warm my heart that people write these nice messages explaining their situation and saying, sorry, I can't keep doing it. So if you can contribute to the show without causing yourself hardship and you want to help pay for the apps and services I need to make the show, it would be really swell if you did. You can go to podfeed.com/Patreon or podfeed.com/PayPal for a one-time donation to help pick up the slack for those who no longer can afford to help out.
Kevin may have found that. Did you put a support the show link in? I guess there is one there.
Yeah.
I can't quite read it.
Yeah.
Let me go to this view.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Yep. I saw a typo. If you apostrophe did. Okay. All right. Next up, we're just going to jump right into some Bart. We didn't know how to start or end. It's pretty funny, actually.
Not even a...
There's no jingle.
No. A time hack?
Oh, I should do that. That one I need. Oh, I'm going to put in a chapter mark, but there... There's no blog post.
So you're not doing the split track and...
I'm going to, but you just reminded me to do this. So I can't do two things at once, darling. There. And here comes the other one. And split check. And what is that? Line those up. So you can tell your screen is too big when you have to do this to see the left side. Okay, so now I get rid of me on here, and I won't delete the plink, Steve. Don't worry. What the heck? What happened?
You went to the end.
How did I jump to a I thought you could jump to a track there. Oh, there it is. Okay. All I wanted to do was delete that. There we go. I think I need to select both of these, slide them over, and give you the plink first.
Blink.
Were you happy, Steve?
Yes.
Okay. It was funny going through in this right column. Actually, what is that clipboard doing over there? This right column is all the little jingles, and I had to go through and pull Forbes Plinky Plink, I Shall Plinky the Plink Plink, Jill Plink, Plink Casey List, Plink Dan Moore, Plink Dave Hamilton, Plink 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 Melissa, Plink Paul Kafasis, John Syracuse. Steve, here, we'll play Steve. I thought that would work. Here. Blink.
That was me?
Yeah.
I don't remember doing that.
I don't think I have a plink from Jill, do I? Jill does her own recording, so it never comes up. Ford to help out. All right. There. For those who no longer can afford to help out. Well, I don't know what time of the week it is. It is time to chat with Bart. I just realized it is not Chit Across the Pond, and it is not Security Bits. Bart is coming on to tell me something fun.
Yeah, I mean, I proposed it to you as a Chit Chat Across the Pond light, and you said, no, I need content for something else. So I don't know what I'm doing either, but I wrote the content, so let's talk about it. I have been, since the Apple Watch Series 0, a user of the bigger of the two normal-sized Apple Watches. And they have changed a little bit. And I've always enjoyed my upgrades. I think I went from a 0 to a 2 to a 4 to a 7. And then I did a big change this week, or the week before this week. I have gone from a normal Apple Watch to an Ultra 2.
Oh, okay.
Which is definitely the biggest change I have made in my Apple watching ever, because they are very different watches to each other.
Yeah, I'm jealous of the Ultra because I really think the form factor is cool, and I would love to have it in a size that didn't look like I had strapped an amateur radio to my arm or something.
It's big, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've always had the bigger watches, and I was very surprised. So first thing actually I will say is this is one of Apple's new completely carbon neutral products, and the box is completely plastic free.
Oh.
And it was actually a real joy to unbox it because of the nice cardboard box. It's actually easier to unbox. It's arguably a little bit less pretty, but I found the paper material much easier to work with than all the old stuff. It was a lot less faffing about to get out my watch. So
that's kind of interesting. So it doesn't even have the little green tab plastic sticky thing?
It does have those. So I guess it's not zero plastic, but that is the only plastic on it. Listeners can't see, but basically I'm showing Alison in the video. So it's a big box.
Oh, it looks like an Apple Watch box, except it's square.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 pull tabs at the back, and then it opens up to give you 2 smaller boxes.
An audio unboxing.
Contain
and now he's holding up another part.
Yeah, but it's all the things you're used to, but it's all just cardboard. It's just
and not
cardboard.
Shiny, slick cardboard.
There's a tiny bit of shiny on some surfaces, but it's very it's deployed in such a way that at first you think it is, and then you realize it's only on the one thing.
Okay.
And they've just they've used it to make it look a little bit prestige, a little bit prestigious, but most of it is very, very matte cardboard.
Okay.
And I really liked it. Like I say, it was actually easier to get into than the old stuff. So on the one hand, it doesn't look as shiny as I'm used to, but hey, I much prefer the environmentally friendly one. So
By the
anyway,
way, on
when I
the
opened-
carbon neutral thing, I was going to write a letter to Tim Cook explaining to him that since I have solar panels and a whole home battery, he doesn't need to carbon offset mine. It'd be okay on just the charging part, right? Because they said that they were going to carbon offset the charging by building renewable energy. But mine is going to be okay.
There's a twig of a branch he doesn't have to plant somewhere.
Exactly. One little
I was
cell.
actually in a shop today, and the lady asked me, "Would you like a paper bag?" And I said, "No, let's save a twig." And she laughed.
I always say to people, I think we have enough trash already. Oh, good point. In California, they made it where you have to pay for them, so they don't.
Yeah, we did
even
that
ask you.
too. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, they still ask us here. It's like, they ask you before they ring up your total.
Yeah.
Do you want a bag?
I always
with
feel
us?
bad when I forget my bag in the car. But anyway, okay. So we're all over the box. So you take it out, and wasn't it huge and heavy?
Yeah. My very, 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 very first reaction was, "Oh no, I've made a colossal mistake," because the watch on its own, without a strap, is way thicker than what I was used to. It's obviously the same. It takes the same size of lug, so the edges where the strap is as wide, but it sticks out further. You have the rim around the scroll wheel to stop you accidentally scrolling while you're out hiking, which makes it look even bigger than it is. And that rim goes around the button. And then you have, of course, the action button on the other side. So that makes it look even bigger than it is. The back is made of ceramic, not the normal aluminium, which gives it another chunkier feel. So it's ceramic on the back and titanium on the front.
Well, I probably shouldn't just sit here playing. I should work on the show. Sisters. Do you maybe we can find that on online.
I don't know.
All right.
A lot of the SNL skits have been pulled for some. I don't know if.
This one's highly inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. I'm going to try to play the ending here where we try to figure out how to close it out.
I have been procrastinating about which of the new bands to buy. I am buying a new band, but I have been procrastinating like crazy. And part of me ends up thinks I'm just going to buy more than one and not procrastinate that way.
Well, I'll send you a link to the one that Steve likes, because I think it's stunning. Like, I notice it across the room how pretty it is. So ooh, I like it.
Well, this for me.
This is cool. This is as light can get, I think. I mean, we covered, what kind of cardboard it came in. We got it all done.
We did indeed. That's a long time since I've done a product review. I'm very out of practice. But anyway.
Oh, I dare you to figure out how to sign off.
Stay active so you stay healthy.
There you go. We'll take it. Bye, Bart.
See it.
That was funny. We couldn't figure out how to get out. Oh dear, he found it. It is funny. It is so creepy. It's seriously funny. All right. Where's my preview window? There you are. All right. 53 minutes. Perfect. Well, that is going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me at allison@podfeet.com anytime you like? If you have a question or a suggestion, just send it on over. You can follow me on Mastodon at podfeet at chaos.social. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. If you want to join the fun of the conversation, you can join our Slack community over at podfeet.com/Slack, where you can talk to me and all of the other lovely NosillaCastaways. You can support the show at podfeet.com/Patreon or with a one-time donation at podfeet.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, don't come here in next week, but if you come in 2 weeks or after that, you can head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. Oh, count the chapter marks.
You bet.
Good job, Kevin. 5.
Yep, I get 5 as well. There are 5 chapter marks.
And stay subscribed. check the weather. Hey, if the weather's working.
Is that
my
still a
grandchildren-
problem for you?
It came. I got it to come back, and then I sent Lindsay the instructions, and her spontaneously came back. So that
Is
was
anyone else seeing that?
Yeah, what we're talking about is weather complications. The weather disappeared on watches. You never had the problem, right?
No.
It's so weird.
I shouldn't say that. It'll probably go away when I say that.
Carrot weather works, right? Yeah. Don't get cocky. All right, I'm going to export the show, and then I think we are going to call it, unless Lindsay has a picture of my darling grandchildren watching the show or something. Let's see. NosillaCast audio. There it is.
Pumpkin Pat. There we go.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Oh, look at
that's
them.
great.
They're so cute. Forbes is such a good big brother. Didn't think you had weather there. Yeah, well, to be fair, what I'm really looking at is the UV index. Bart and I got talking about that because he has to check for rain and I have to check the UV index. I just noticed something. There's a little white spike sitting up in the field on the Sonoma background. Anyway, yes, I need to know how much sunscreen to put on before I go on my walks. Oh, they were not good attendees. All right. Well, they were cute earlier. All right. Well, I think we are. I think we're done, Steve.
I think we are. Good show.
We got sunburned. Oh. All righty. Well, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Rose. Mwah. Give the kids a kiss for me, Linz. Even if they're being rotten.
Bye-bye.